evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. It's been a while, as you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always as my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hello.
And if I sound a bit echoey today, it's because I'm recording from the projection booth. Great acoustics in here, I gotta say.
That was always the idea in the beginning, is that we would record all of these in the projection booth at the end of a show at night. And I've said this before, then we realized we are dead beat.
Then we came to our senses. Yes.
We don't want to sit in the projection booth for a couple hours starting at 3 a.m, where we would have nothing to say except how tired we were. So we generally do them from home. But I'm glad you're keeping the dream alive.
This time of year is magical with the early start times. Like, we started at 7:30 last night. As a timestamp, we're going into October of our magical 2020 season. And it's nuts.
2022.
What did I say? Did I say 2020? I did that before at a certain point, didn't I?
You are so in love with the pandemic year that you just have never left.
In 2022, it's been crazy. Mark, has it not? This roller coaster ride of a season?
Right.
Just before October of our 2022 season, and the idea of starting at 7:30. I mean, there's times when we're waiting until 9:30, 9:45. It's like, sometimes it's a really long stretch, and it feels like we open the gate, you blink, and then we're up on the screen. So it does lend for the early nights.
Jeff had told me years ago when I was submitting listings, I submit our listings to various listing sites that populate things like Fandango and local events and all that. And I said, what is the earliest we will ever start a show? And he always said 7:30 p.m. is the earliest we will ever start, despite when it might get dark, because it gives at least locals time to have dinner and then get out to the theater, get home from work. We hope you'll have dinner with us. Obviously, it's better for us financially if you eat with us, but still, just so anybody knows, 7:30 is the earliest it'll ever be. And yeah, it's something like 9 or a little bit later when we're in the total, heat of summer and longest days, which can make, a triple feature of, say, 2-hour movies or even a double feature of 2 Dick Van Dyke Family classics go really, really deep into the night. We never thought about how long Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins were until we experienced 2 nearly 3-hour films starting at 9 p.m.
Yes, this was the year of learning lessons. Like, it is a situation we kind of knew was coming out of the pandemic. For those of you guys that listened to our interview with April Wright and her documentary that just came out, very much focuses on that, where every drive-in across the country got the attention, got the boost, and now that it's back to semi-normal, things are starting to shift back, and things are tough for the industry. I mean, as we stand right now, there is, Mark will attest, not much to see in the theaters. It's a sad situation for first-run theaters, and in October, we see such a boost in attention, naturally, because I think a part of people's spooky season traditions, or the idea of what spooky season is, nothing sounds cooler than going to see a horror movie at a drive-in. Doesn't matter what the drive-in is. And naturally, we get a ton of new people off of that.
And this year, because a lot of theater owners see no major releases. I mean, movies are coming out every week. And I will go every week and see something new, but they're much more obscure. They're not blockbusters. There really seem to be no blockbusters coming as we record this in October or late September of 2022. There seem to be no blockbusters coming probably until the holiday season. So a lot of theaters and a lot of drive-ins especially are going retro again, like they did in 2020. And a lot of drive-ins for the last few weeks in September, they're all approaching, most of them, the end of their season. A lot of them don't go as far into the season as we do, which is always the last weekend in October. A lot of drive-ins are showing the biggest classic horror movies of like of the 80s and 90s right now. So we're seeing a lot of titles that we've played recently, or we might even have coming up, playing coast to coast in drive-ins now. So for us, there's actually more. They don't do really what we do in the way we do it. They don't do 35. They don't do the immersive experiences and the guests and all that. But it's interesting to see so many people who say, gee, I wish I lived closer. Gee, it's really too far away. Just about everybody's local drive-in this weekend, as we write this in the next few, has Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Scream, The Crap. I mean, like all kinds of really, really big horror stuff. So as a fan of retro movies on the big screen and as a retro horror fan and a retro film fan, I think that's great. As somebody who works at a drive-in that does exclusively retro and a lot of horror, it's more competition than we're used to for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's just been what we've seen in general this year. Again, going back to the learning lessons thing, is the world has opened back up. The things that we were able to add to the experience and the upgrades we were able to do on our lot, all that stuff, it's very much paced, with our success. And just the idea of what our calendar looks like and how we pace that out certainly was a learning lesson this year. And I told everybody, I said it to Jeff last night, I'm already looking forward to next year, just to kind of put some of these ideas in motion to really take us up a notch and assure that we can rock this thing forever.
Right.
And anyway, we are running into October, and it would be dumb for us to not let you guys know what we have coming up in October. So we just had a kind of perfect screening of The Thing last night. John Carpenter's The Thing. Not only was there a little chill in the air and it got a little colder as the night went on, the print looked absolutely gorgeous. Anytime Harry brings that print out, it's absolutely gorgeous. And cosplay fandom, I kept walking around the lot. I was like, on a Tuesday! It's incredible. I love when the Demmers are on the lot. They really bring an extra level of fandom and love of the movies, which people so embrace, And people always ask, do you have photo ops? Do you have this or that? It's like, no, but 9 times out of 10, we can guarantee you there will be somebody to take a photo with. There will be some experience at the drive-in that you can share on your socials,
And John brought his A game, as he always does. Don't believe the man has a B game. He comes dressed as full McCready with the goggles and the Ken Russell hair. Sure, why not? Kurt Russell hair as well. And the fake, I think, flamethrower. And this thing he's brought a couple of times when we've showed in the film, it's a replica of the severed human head that grows legs and runs around. He has a replica of that on like a little like ATV radio controlled car. God. That just runs around the lot, and it is nightmare fuel.
Yes, it's incredible. And anybody who knows the Demmers know that they go all out, decorate their car, always have some sort of theme going with their vehicle. And I love when it just overtakes the lot. They were walking around the lot. He's rolling up on people with the spider head. It's just it's one of those things, like the perfect fall night. And the people who were truly blown away by what we do. A lot of new people last night. Again, that's not a new thing for us, but a lot of new people who were coming out and showing us some love. I just realized that we said, jumping into this, we're not going to do a calendar episode. We're going to answer some Patreon questions, things like that. And I realized we're totally slipping into calendar. So let's just blow right through it. So Freddy Fest, the 6th through the 9th.
Before that is Jack Shoulder's The Hidden.
Yes.
Thursday, October 6th. A really fun Kyle MacLachlan, Michael Nouri, chasing an alien that can inhabit anyone, anywhere, wreaking havoc in LA. It's like an action sci-fi horror thriller.
Nightmare Before Freddy Fest. Yeah, you guys got to come on out. I know Jack just appeared at Fantastic Fest over the weekend.
Showing the hidden, like
Showing the hidden. Yeah. Hey, if you guys couldn't be in Austin this weekend, make your way on over to Lehighton, Pennsylvania, and rock with us. And Freddy Fest, I told Harry last night, I was like, this is one that's just going to sell itself. As you said, Nightmare on Elm Street is playing across the country right now to hook horror fans in for a nice spooky treat. We don't have just one Nightmare. We got 6 of them. And we also have 7 guests for this weekend. So if you guys are Freddy fans, come on out. If you guys are autograph people, I mean, come on out. You could literally get a whole entire poster filled just off of one night. So, and then the following weekend, 90s Rewind. I just want to let the fans of the podcast know about this thing. I'm super, super proud of this. Josh from Lunch Meat reached out and we put our heads together on a triple feature each night. So on the 14th, we got Drop Dead Fred, Little Monsters, and Nothing But Trouble, which has to be seen to be believed. And on Saturday the 15th, we got Good Burger, Heavyweights, and Angus. Literally a fat boy's dream come true right there. So really, really excited about that one. Vincent Price twice on the 16th. That is a double feature.
If I can throw just a quick thing in there, that is a double feature of The Abominable Dr. Phibes, which I love, and House of Wax, which is a Stone Cold classic, in 2D, because we can't do 3D at the drive-in. And I went and reached out to a bunch of people who sell or produce Vincent Price merchandise. And a lot of times when I'm looking to hustle for free raffle donations from cool companies, I'll send out to a bunch of people hoping that one says yes. In the case of the Vincent Price show, they all said yes. So this might be the biggest raffle we've had on a Sunday night show in probably quite a while.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. And obviously that's going to bring the fandom out. You know, the following weekend, we actually don't have booked yet. I shouldn't say that. We don't have it announced yet. So you guys have something to look forward to there. But we did just announce our Sunday night, the 23rd. We will be doing our Luther's Midnight Snack live event with our resident artist, Hayden Hall, who is now also a horror host, if you guys didn't know that. Have you seen any of this stuff, Mark?
I haven't yet because I've been so darn busy. I don't really watch as much as I would like at home during the on season, shall we say. But this is cool. This is taking it back to the roots. This is an old style spook show. This is an old style, the kind of things that drive-ins and indoor theaters used to do all the time. Our friend Dave Wright has an exceptional Instagram account called American Spook Show, where he gets into a lot of this stuff of the old days. This is going to be a live horror host show, broadcast onto our big screen as they record it, and they'll later, I guess, probably wind up online somewhere, with a screening of Drive-In Massacre, which is a wonderfully sleazy 70s film shot at a 70s drive-in about people being murdered at a drive-in. There is no better place to watch Drive-In Massacre than at a drive-in. And they've got this thing called the Kill Booth they're setting up, which is some little video. It's almost like a photo booth, but with video, where you go in and you choose your method of demise, and they basically create that via editing and throw it up on the big screen afterwards. It's going to be an amazing night, the likes of which I don't think we've ever done anything quite like this before.
No,
maybe except Joe Bob, I guess. But this is much different from that. And then they're going to run Driller Killer after that, all from VHS. So it's got that lo-fi 80s, 90s vibe to it. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. This is the kind of thing that I think where we kind of shine the brightest is when we do something really unusual that other people don't do or haven't done often, or that we've never done. And I hope people come out for that and support. And Hayden's a great guy anyway, and he's putting a lot into this show, not just aside from what he's doing at the drive-in. So hopefully this will be a nice way for people who are fans of Luther's Mid-Fright Snack to come out and see it in person. And for people who just want to have a really bizarre, goofy night on a Sunday in October, that should fit that bill.
Yeah, really great guys, really great team. And our final weekend of the year, as you guys know, we run until Halloween, or as close as we could get. Friday the 28th. We were on the fence on what we were going to do, but we went on Fantasy Friday. Labyrinth and the Witches, which I got to say, kinder trauma with that one. Right? Did you see that one, Mark?
Funny enough, I've never seen either of those two movies.
No way!
We've played Labyrinth a few times. It's a crowd pleaser. And that's one of those movies that at the time it came out, I was a little old, I think, to be the target audience. So I wasn't interested. And I just never got around to watching it. Now I would. And I'm just at this point, I'm holding out to see it on the big screen. And I repeatedly miss it every time we show.
You haven't seen Labyrinth?
I've never seen Labyrinth.
What? We've played it probably 5 times.
And I don't know if I was ever on site when we did, you know? It was always one of those times where I had something else going on, or it was a weekend I chose to do something else. I've never seen Labyrinth, and I've never seen The Witches. So it's like when we did Labyrinth and Legend, I wanted to watch those because I'd still never seen Legend. And I just keep repeatedly missing it. So maybe the 8th time is the charm.
My mind is blown right now. Although I got to say, there's a million things you've seen that I haven't seen, and I'm sure your mind blows the other way.
Well, that's the kind of thing people will say to me. They're like, oh, God, you've seen everything. And I'm like, you'd be surprised some of the things I haven't seen.
All right. That's the case with everybody, you know. Talk about being on the fence on what we were going to do with that Halloween weekend. James was insistent that we had something that took place on Halloween. We don't want to just touch on the theme. We got to really go for it. So what we decided on was tricks and treats. Trick or Treat 2007, right, Mark?
2007.
And Trick or Treat, the 80s classic. Classic?
I think by now it is.
It is beloved. That is for damn sure.
Yeah, it's the heavy metal, it's the satanic panic heavy metal ooga booga. Skippy from Family Ties plays a record backwards and summons the spirit of an evil, murderous, dead rock and roll star. And only he and his friends can stop this evil metal guy from taking over the world. It's really ridiculous.
Metal. It's going to be a metal night, that is for sure. But yeah, that is going to include both of those nights, an on-screen costume contest where the winner will win an incredible prize. I don't want to give it away here because it's crazy. And we're also going to be doing our Trunk or Treat, kind of a staple of the drive-in culture at this point. You can come and decorate your vehicle, and we will give the winner each night a Mahoning prize pack. So come on out. That covers most of the calendar. You can check us out, mahoningdit.com, for all the dates, deets, and ticks, of course.
Too bad. Poor man. But it's his own fault. We warned him. We told him to close his eyes when he heard this sound during the running of the motion picture, The Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe's classic tale of terror. Look, are you squeamish? Then be honest with yourself. Close your eyes and don't look at the screen until this sound stops. There's a good reason for this warning. You see, you take the chance of forever hearing the telltale heart in your nightmares. He hasn't stopped screaming in 2 weeks. The Telltale Heart. Coming soon to this theater.
So, Mark, why don't we shift over? What's going on with the Patreon? This time of year, I have this sinking feeling knowing that the season's slowly coming to an end. Some of us will go our opposite ways, go to our different states. It becomes harder and harder for us to see each other, but the party doesn't have to end, right, Mark?
That's the fun thing about Patreon is that it never stops. Believe me, as the person who runs it, it never stops. I try to keep it posting, several times a week, cool content. Some of it's content that I create, and some of it is stuff that I have amassed over the course of the season. We actually have a pretty huge backlog that goes back several years of things I have that I just try not to, inundate people with it, but it's going to last a while. So Patreon, it's several levels. If you haven't heard about this, bear with me if you have. It's a $5, a $10, and a $20, or a penny less than each of those tiers, and each of those gets you different things. Each higher tier gets you everything the lower ones do, and you get a membership card that's personalized for you. If you're in any level, you get some discounts, you get videos, you get exclusive podcasts, you get to vote on some things we do at the theater. There's really a lot. It's very involved. It's sort of an insiders club, and also it's a way for us to share a lot of content and thoughts and information that we just don't fit into our normal social media channels because we're always trying to promote upcoming shows with those. So part of the top tier too, the simplex tier, which is not a social disease the way we spell it or have intent for it, is you get a monthly screening. Initially, it was a monthly screening at the theater, 35 millimeter screenings from our vault, movies that we've either never shown, might never show to the public, prints from collectors, usually pretty obscure stuff, but occasionally a big classic in there. And it's a really cool, it's like the old days at the theater. It's usually only 20 or 30 people. It's everybody knows each other. I'll do a DJ set. It's a really fun kind of wacky night that we do there. We realized at the end of last season that we wouldn't be able to do those anymore in the wintertime because the theater's closed. So we started doing virtual screenings once a month where we take a license of film from the AGFA, American Genre Film Archive Library, which is incredibly deep. Everything from Argento films to super obscure foreign films to who knows what that span really like the 50s or 60s up into the recent day. We licensed one of those films. I put together a pre-recorded DJ set as though I was at the theater, and everybody can watch along and chat along for 2 hours on a Wednesday night once a month. We decided to keep doing those during the season. So if you're a Patreon member when the drive-in is open, and you're a Simplex member, I should say, you get 2 of those shows a month. You get a virtual and an in-person, and then all through the winter, we keep doing the virtuals because there's no shortage of movies we can show. And for Virgil and myself and any of the staff that participate, it's a way to sort of still interact with our audience and our friends and each other. So that's a whole long shebang. And also with Simplex, you get an enamel pin that's exclusive every year and changes every year and a lot of other stuff. So I could go on forever about that because it is about 65% of what my brain is always doing at any given time.
Yes. So it is a situation where we do want the season to continue every single year. And this is the time of year where we, kind of hit that wall and we're trying to give as much back as we can to keep the family experience and the experience in general alive, So the Patreon, in the off season really takes on a whole other life and a whole other meaning in that, it keeps us all together. It keeps the fan base informed on the upcoming bookings, things that we're working on. It really becomes even more exclusive than during the season, where you're kind of on the inside as we figure out what we are going to do for next year. So really excited about that. And you said that we're going to work on a all member screening.
Yeah, that's my intention. Is we did this last year around in December, sort of as a gift to all of our members who, whatever tier you're in, to let everybody see what one of those Simplex virtual shows is like and just sort of give that as a gift. And we're going to do another one of those. I may try to get that done in October. I'll put that out through the Patreon and maybe on our main socials too, if anybody wants to sign up in advance of that. And it'll be no different from a typical Simplex show. It'll just be accessible to everybody who's a Patreon member. And overall, the show usually runs a couple hours between the hour-long DJ set. And usually it's about a 2-hour video program after that. And then Virgil will usually pop in before the movie starts, say hello and maybe share a little inside skinny, and I'll pop in at the end. And we always do a door prize giveaway. We look at all the membership numbers of whoever's involved. We do a random number generator, pull a number, and that person gets a Blu-ray that Kino Lorber or MVD has given us.
It's a great night at the movies, and like you said, it's very familial, even more than a traditional night. It reminds me of the old days when it was a very tight-knit group of people, before we blew up and had hundreds of cars here every single night. So it's really great, a really great experience. I can't say enough about it for you guys to come out, but occasionally we do go to these Patreon members and ask them to ask questions for the podcast. And it's been a while since we recorded, Mark, so I imagine we got some.
We did. Our Patreon members, and I don't just say this because they give us money, are pretty brilliant. And whenever I say, generally what we do is every month we give an exclusive podcast to Patreon, and sometimes those podcasts, or oftentimes it's just a Q&A. It's like, send us questions or topics. We'll riff on a topic, or we'll answer your questions. And back in July 27th of 2022, that was months ago, I did that, and people just gave us a ton. And we just have been so busy, we never got around to recording it. So we're making this a public episode so they can hear their questions. People all around literally, as I'm finding out, all around the world will hear the answers to these questions. First up is our good friend Kyle Park, who works at Neshaminy Creek Brewing, who we worked with on the Showtime at Sundown limited edition beer this year. Kyle says, favorite depictions of drive-ins in movies or shows?
Oh my God.
Now, just so you know, we don't really look at these questions before we start, so we may be editing this down so that
As we think,
our
yeah.
think time is.
I mean, there were a couple that were so inspirational for me. So certainly the Monster Squad, which I've talked about on the podcast before, with Sean sitting on his roof watching the horror movie from his house, pretty much, which was my dream as a child. You know, more than running a drive-in, which I didn't even think was possible. It was, I want to live close enough where I can literally sit on my roof and watch drive-in movies every single night. And in a weird way, it's tied into everything that I do. Like that image of Sean looking over his city to binocular his favorite horror movie is pretty influential. I also love the scene in The Wizard with Fred Savage, where they hide out. They're making their way across the country to California, and they hide out at one point in, I believe it's a projection booth of a drive-in, and then some street toughs come and take their money and all that. But that's another one, a visual, you know, that really stuck with me as a kid. I don't know if they're my favorites, but they're certainly ones that I love.
I'm sort of struggling with my answer to just basically list everything I remember and the ones that I like best. Because to try to answer this, you're running through what is everyone I remember. For me, Targets is a big one. The Boris Karloff Targets film, which is a great movie that has a climax. Bogdanovich's first feature, I believe, has a climax at a drive-in. I think about, there's a Brady Bunch episode where Greg and Peter double date, and Peter is wearing a fake mustache, pretending to be an older man named Phil Packer. And he's sitting there with a girl trying to make out or something, and half of his mustache is falling off, and he doesn't. And it might wind up in the popcorn. So that was pretty. I love it. I'm a huge Brady Bunch fan. And then I think of a movie. There's Fred and Ray's Bikini Drive-In. There's a movie called American Drive-In. I'm just thinking about Drive-In Massacre. Actually, I like a lot because it really is almost entirely shot at an LA drive-in. And I was always fascinated by California drive-ins growing up because they were so different from what I experienced. For me, drive-ins were always pretty rural. There was always grass or gravel, and the LA drive-ins were always paved. And I always thought that was a really weird kind of harsh feel. And they always looked like they were industrial areas where there was just stuff all around them. So you get to see like the old snack bar and the projection booth and the lot during the day and the lot at night. And so those might be mine. Targets, Brady Bunch, Bikini Drive-In, and Drive-In Massacre.
And of course that Hooters music video, right?
Did we tell that story?
I
don't think we did.
Yes, we totally had one of the members of the 80s band, the Hooters, show up at the drive-in just as a fan, as a total fan. And by circumstance, I think, was it you on the DJ booth?
Yeah.
Like we were playing his song.
He came in, Andy King from the Hooters. He was in the Hooters in their glory days. He comes into the projection booth, and it was I don't remember what it was. It was a pretty mainstream, popular weekend show. And he asked if he could put in a request. I'm like, oh, sure. And he was like, oh, yeah, I used to be in this band in the 80s, the Hooters. And Jeff and I are like, what? I just wondered if you could play our song because it was shot at a drive-in, and my wife and her sister are sitting out in the front row, and they were in the video, and they would just get a kick out of it. And I said, and we danced, right? And he's like, yeah. Like, he didn't even have to say the song because that song was huge. I'd forgotten that it was shot at a drive-in, apparently a Pennsylvania drive-in, somebody later told me. And I was like, absolutely. I said, do you want us to dedicate it? And he's like, no, just if you could just play it, that would be great. Because he just wanted it to be a surprise. And we talked to him for a while. Super nice guy. I guess he vacations in the area regularly, and they just came out to see, whatever we were showing that night. But that's what I always like to say. That kind of experience, that's what we call Friday night at work at the moment. It's just insane stuff happens all the time. And it's just like, yep, just another night at the drive-in.
I know, it's absolutely maddening. But yeah, it's so I like bringing stuff up on the podcast because in a weird way it holds me accountable for them. And I love people that come up and ask, how's the children's book going? How is the stuff that we have on the back burner at the moment going? But I started digging back into the scripts and working on a horror script that's based around the Mahoning, really with that sense of work with what you got scenario. And this is the perfect setting. And in a weird way, I have a really nice story that I think goes along with it, while also feeding the horror fans with some amazing stuff. So yeah, look forward to that. Who knows? I don't know how quickly this thing's going to push forward, but I'm going to try to put my heart into this thing in the off season and make that the thing that doesn't make me go crazy missing the place.
I don't know if we ever talked about it, but not long after the Joe Bob Jamboree that happened a year ago, we got a script sent to us from somebody who was a big Joe Bob fan and who knew about the Jamboree and our almost going under, almost being taken away, Save the Mahoning situation. And they wrote a script based on that was basically Joe Bob and Darcy versus like demons from hell and trying to save the drive-in. And it was amazing to read a script with our names in it. You and I were characters.
Yep.
But it was also amusing that they clearly didn't know us. So the way that they had, us talking and interacting with each other and like talking about the projection booth on the second floor and all this stuff, it's like they probably hadn't been to the Jamboree, but they were fans of Joe Bob and they appreciated us and what we do. It was a very, very strange experience, but totally cool. Someday maybe we'll see if that person is willing to let us publish that somewhere like online, because I mean, it was a full movie script and it was pretty wacky and wild. And yeah.
I love that stuff. Like we are a breeding ground for creative people to come and kind of spark ideas and work off each other and things like that. So it's the bug. It's the bug. We all got it. Kyle, we love you, bro. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the Showtime at Sundown Brew, as many of you might know, sold out very quickly. It was a huge hit for Neshaminy Creek. And we're planning on bringing it back again right around the same time next year. So we love you guys.
That's excellent. A lot of people have asked about that, if they could buy it at our theater, if they could buy it anywhere here and there. And it's good to know that much like Summer Dollars, may be one of the Neshaminy greatest hits that returns every summer.
Time now for your barbecue break. Treat yourself right now to that good old Southern style just right barbecue. Steeped in taste-tingling barbecue sauce made just right from fresh, firm, choice ingredients. The recipe handed down for generations and cooked Southern style to tender perfection, slowly, hour after hour, capturing the taste-tempting barbecue flavor. It's just right tender goodness, generously spooned on a fresh, soft bun for you. It's hard to wait. It smells so good. And oh boy, it is lip-smacking good. Here it comes, your Southern style just right barbecue on a bun with all the delicious trimmings. A snack to remember. Enjoy it now along with your choice of hot or cold drinks. It's a favorite of all the family, prepared and served just right.
So our next question is from our good friend Gene Beretta. No relation to the Robert Blake character. And I'm sure that's a joke that has been funny for him probably since the 70s.
It follows.
He's probably like, yeah, junior high would have been fine for it to have stopped back then.
Got Robert Blake's face on a dartboard somewhere.
Oh, God. No parrot? No parrot. So he's got a two-parter. This will require a little thought. If the Mahoning story became a feature film, who would you like to have play all you guys? I'll start. Billy Barty as Virgie. Now, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Aside from the fact that the man's deceased, I think Billy Barty used to actually do that. He used to be with like Spike Jonze and stuff, and they dress him up as a baby. So
I'd be honored.
Who to play you? I don't think I could say who should play me.
I mean,
other than someone who's dashing.
Yeah, it's a shame because Dom DeLuise would be the perfect casting choice. No, I would say if I had the choice, I'd go to one of my favorites, Jables, Jack Black, all day. Nice little crossover. I think he's a little too old to play me, but certainly fits the type.
I would say mid-60s Jerry Lewis, but not in character.
Yeah,
the semi-smarmy, yet prone to under pressure. Sure.
I've been known to let out a voice every now and then.
Because I play it cool most of the time in terms of being very low key, but there are times in certain situations where it is something out of the errand boy. Right. So, what do you think for Jeff? What would you say? Brian Cox, maybe a svelte Brian Cox, Anthony Hopkins. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be great. My goodness, this is really, really hard. This would be one of those things I'd be curious to see what the Patreoners have to say.
Actually,
Who
yeah.
they think would play us. Because, man, it's so tough. It's so tough. But, yeah, maybe that's one that I'll work on as well and try to bring back a stone cold casting list.
We'll have to try to do that. Maybe that'll be a post on Facebook or Patreon in the off season. It really requires a lot of thought. You don't want it to come off as insulting to anybody, but it takes a lot of time. And as I said, we don't really look at these beforehand to really, if you scoured it, it would be really kind of fun to figure out who would play everybody.
That is
the most complimentary way possible.
Yeah, that seems like a great crew party conversation to have, you know,
or like a Carl and Daryl top 5 list.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. Got to show the love to Gene Beretta. He not only loves the Mahoning like crazy, he shared that love with his son Ben, and now he's given his son to us. That sounds
terrible. He loves us so much. He's like, just take my kid. Just take him.
Sacrificial son, take him. No, he shows up early on the lot, and Ben is able to lend us a hand for school credits. So he's been coming in and helping us out, getting things ready, getting the lot looking pretty, and it's really a beautiful thing. So got to give a shout out to not only Gene, but his son, Ben.
Also, Gene was instrumental. And when I say instrumental, it would not have happened without him in getting us the Frank Oz video intro for Little Shop of Horrors. Gene and his brother, they do the Beretta Brothers podcast, Vodcast, which is a video, and he and his brother discuss the Muppets, and they're connected to the Muppet world. They have all kinds of Muppet performers and people on this podcast, Vodcast. And he knows Frank Oz, and he asked, and Frank Oz delivered, and it was really good. And that's another thing. If you're a Patreon member, if you're the $10 and up Patreon, we post all of the video intros that either occur live or are pre-recorded at the drive-in, so you can see them again if you missed it or if you want to watch it again. And Frank Oz was great because he told little stories about making Little Shop of Horrors, and then told a personal story of going to see a movie at a drive-in when he was a kid, which was just gold.
That is one of those things that I'm going to be riding that for years, you know, like the idea that Yoda knows who we are, you know, acknowledged how cool the what we're doing is, like the embrace from Hollywood and beyond. It never ceases to amaze, where it's just like, it's nuts. And Gene was here for that night, and we were up there. I'm like, you know, give me some credits that I can list off, you know? And he's like, it's nuts. It's like Bert, you know, like all like crazy things that are so embedded in your brain. It's just nuts. But thank you, Gene.
And he has a second question, totally unrelated to that first puzzler. How do you keep the screen clean? Are there periodic washings? If so, how is that done?
So there is not necessarily a company that'll come out and do it, but a company that will come out and do it for us. And it's not necessarily a cleaning process as it is truly a recoding process. As you guys know, gosh, how long ago was it now that we lost the wing to our screen? 4 years?
It seems like for the last several years, there's some kind of catastrophe once a year. I think that was the catastrophe for like 3 years ago.
Right, 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yes, we had our screen fully repainted when we had to rebuild the left wing of the screen, which was taken down by the weather. And it's holding up pretty good. I mean, the only downside is that because of the age of the screen, there are some rusting out nails, things like that, that'll cause a little rundown. Really, you can only see if you're a front rower, but it is one of those things you would pretty much take up like a power washer and, you know, spray it down, put a new coat on there. Jeff is very specific about the screen color.
He has mentioned it in a separate podcast. It's a specific type of white paint that is made for theater screens so that it reflects the light.
This is why we miss Jeff on the podcast. And it's a good time to talk about it. Like, we try to get Jeff on the podcast every time we record. He is a busy man, as you know. Like, he is deep in the radio game and keeps him busy a lot during the days when Mark and myself have seemingly the time to be able to make this work. So Jeff will be back on the podcast, and he will give us all the information and smack us for not knowing the exact color of the white.
He's not a violent man. But if he's pushed, don't test him.
That's right.
So Michael Schilling says, a day in the life of the Mahoning crew. How long does it take to prepare or clean up a place as large as the Mahoning lot? Depends on the savage animals who were there the night before.
That's very
Depends
true.
on the savage animals who might get into the garbage actually once in a while.
Yeah. How long does it take? The whole season.
You do more in the way of lot cleanup than I do. You're there during the day, during post show.
I mean, it's a never ending routine. I say it. You could walk around with the picker and the bucket, and if you keep your head down, you can pick up forever. Down to the cigarette butts, down to the littlest things. I do a surface sweep, as I call it, things that I can grab by just visually driving around on the cycle. And I do that pretty much after each show, do a couple laps, grab the back lot stuff. Because we are surrounded by woods, if there are any folks who, I'm going to say, accidentally leave some trash behind without putting it in a receptacle, it tends to blow to the back of the lot. So a lot of the trash does collect in the back brush. So I start there, do the back walk on the brush, get anything that's been blown into it, and then pretty much work your way forward toward the screen, row by row. It's not a quick process. It's not a fun process. It can be. I have Virgie do it. I have Nance go around with me when she's here. This time of year when it's not hot, it's a great, hey, I'm just going to walk the lot, do some laps, nice little exercise. And
I've done it a few times. It's actually rather relaxing. The picker we have is incredibly dexterous. Like you can easily pick up the smallest thing.
An extension of your arm.
Yeah, and if it's a nice day and the sun is not blazing and to get a nice little breeze, it's beautiful. The lot is beautiful. It's a beautiful area we're in. And maybe either, put in some headphones and listen to music or a podcast or just kind of listen to the wind blow.
Yeah.
I don't do it as often as I'd like, which sounds weird. I'd like to pick up other people's trash really often. But it's one of those things where little things get dropped and things, the wind will carry things here and there. And it's decades of, bottle caps and cigarette butts and things like that get away to the surface. So there's always stuff to pick up.
Yeah. And that's, if the question was how long does it take for us to clean up after an event? We like to have the lot looking great before we open the next day. So, sometimes it takes just that long. Other times it's much easier. I got to give a shout out to the back lotters, though, the folks who overnight. There are some back lotters who they just don't have anything to do during the day. I keep the buckets and the grabbers just out, so anybody who walks by can just grab it. And many times I have found that bucket becomes full and people are doing the walking for us. It's pretty amazing. So, but if the question is how long does it take for us to get ready for a show?
That too, how long to prepare. I think from the first person on the lot, Beth setting up the stand,
right?
Stuff.
Yeah, I'd say the pre stuff is the boys in the projection room. Mike and Robert are incredible with their system now, where they have workbenches at home where they can inspect film, and 9 times out of 10 they're able to do the inspection at home. So they will show up maybe a good hour before gate with the films, get everything ready to go. We'll be in here, Mark, myself, getting the money straight out to the ticket booth, all that stuff. I'd say, traditionally staff shows up, 4 o'clock for a 6 o'clock show?
Something like that. I think sometimes Beth's there earlier if she's got a lot of food to stock or prepare.
Yeah, Beth is usually 3, and she's usually the first here. Maybe 3:30 for a 6 o'clock show.
And I try to be there an hour or two to help facilitate.
Yeah.
This last weekend it was trying to help make thousands of VHS tapes that were donated fit on our VHS wall. Other weeks it might be cleaning, it might be helping somebody set something up, it might be testing equipment. For me, it's all kinds of stuff. But I feel if it's a busy show, I certainly want to be there minimum an hour early. If it's a lighter show, probably still minimum an hour early.
Yeah, anything that arises, we'll certainly know about before the gates open. And, that is for a traditional show. If we're talking about a big production, then a lot more goes into it because we're bringing in guests, picking up guests, getting them fed, wining and dining, all that stuff, and trying to make sure everybody's happy, which will be the case for Freddy Fest for sure. So, but yeah, I say it because I live over an hour away. I stay on the lot more often than I don't. if we have a show the next day, chances are I'm staying over on the lot, and specifically for the overnighters. So it's I'd say it's like a 6 month out of the year pedal to the metal situation, at least for most of us. And then another 6 months we get to kind of take a step back, and even though we're still doing a lot, it's not as hyper as the season can get.
It's funny, when we had our off season last year, because I was doing Patreon and setting up raffle donations for the coming season and all that, it felt like I never really stopped. I wasn't on the lot at all, but it never felt like a big break for me. So some people, it was like, oh, it's good to get back in the swing of things. And I'm like, you and I were talking almost every day. I mean, Virgil and I were talking almost every day still, just about planning. The planning never really stops. It just kind of slows down. There's a little bit room for something else in your life if you're a staffer or part of the management team at the Mahoning, but otherwise, yeah, it is a break for some people.
Yeah,
probably wasn't even what you said, but I just said that anyway.
It's so hard to describe what goes into this, and I've had people who, try to pick my brain about it. Like, what does go into this? It's so fully immersive. I couldn't even begin to explain. Like, it's from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep, there's always some sort of concern about the theater, how we're doing, what we're doing, how people feel.
I'm always monitoring every communication avenue we have. It's I've said it before, it's Facebook, Instagram, Ticket Leap. You can message through that. We can get messages through Square, email, messages through the website. And I pride myself on really fast responses, because sometimes I feel like that answer I give this person in the timely manner might make the difference of whether they're coming out or not. Right. And there's so much. Yeah, the only time I'm really not thinking about the theater and not working for the theater is if I'm asleep or in a movie.
That is the nice thing, that we do have the outlet to be able to go to a darkened theater and just get out of our heads for a little while. Which, by the way, I didn't want to make it sound like there's garbage out in the theater. There's just not movies that early in the podcast, that is. There's just movies that aren't drawing the big crowds like they did.
It's sort of more art house, even in the mainstream theaters. It's more niche stuff. It's not big Marvel movies and what the film industry has become dependent upon for big audiences.
Yeah, so it's tough. And, again, you see why theaters are kind of forced to go and dig into the vaults, because there's not much to feed them. And it doesn't help the situation that some of the biggest holiday Halloween movies are not going to theaters. They're streaming. So, which is something Mark and I talk about all the time, and everybody here really talks about all the time.
Imagine a man so powerful, his fist can penetrate a 6-inch post, whose head, elbows, knees, and feet are loaded weapons, ready to explode. Lo Lee is the stranger, a martial arts master. Lee Van Cleef is the gunfighter, the legendary man of iron. He carries luck for the ladies and life on his hip. Columbia Pictures presents The Stranger and the Gunfighter.
Welcome to Monterey,
where the law is left dangling at the end of a rope.
the hanging town.
Lee Van Cleef, Lo Lee, two fantastic fighting machines. The Stranger and the Gunfighter. Together, they can do anything. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
So our good friend, whose handle on Patreon is Neon Rocket Ship, but we know he's really Will, said, if you could book any one guest for an autographed signing and Q&A without financial or print rights availability restrictions, that's the dream, what guest would you choose and what movies would you show that night?
Jesus.
You would show.
Yeah, I would bring out.
You'd have Jesus come out, because what bigger guest can you get?
That's true.
And then you show Jesus Christ Superstar and maybe the Bible.
Yeah, totally. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
There you go. You could build a whole weekend around that.
Yeah.
The biggest guest ever.
That's a loaded question. Mark, where did your head go somewhere immediately?
My initial knee-jerk reaction is personal, stuff that I would want to see, which is somewhat how we book the place. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to show the original Star Wars trilogy on 35 millimeter Technicolor prints from the original release, and we want to have Mark Hamill come out and George Lucas. There you go. That's nothing we would ever dream to even think about because it's impossible. But that's the most requested films that we have. And what better guests than, Luke Skywalker and the guy who thought it up.
Yeah.
For me personally, it would be Cannonball Run, which is, I've just been given the information that it is more feasible than it's ever been to do that. Ooh. And to have people who actually were in those races, have Adrienne Barbeau come out because she was in that film. There aren't that many people left. Maybe Jamie Farr come out because he was in the film. But then have people who have actually been in the Cannonball race who are out there and who are still doing it. Have them come out, have some of the cars that ran in the actual Cannonball races. There's an exact copy replica, Travis Bell, who runs a really cool company that we've utilized for raffles, who he makes replica license plates for movie and TV cars. He has an exact replica of the ambulance that ran in the Cannonball in 79 and then was later used in the movie in 81. Have him come out. There's a guy who dresses like Captain Chaos. I mean, I would make an amazing Cannonball night with some celebrity guests. I would have Pam Grier come out and do a Pam Grier weekend because I'm a huge fan. And I don't know, Dirty Harry weekend with Clint Eastwood there. I mean, the list could be endless.
It's nuts. I go to Hero. I mean, my brain automatically went to filmmaking. Heroes. I mean, Robert Rodriguez, Linklater, QT. Could you imagine that? Which, as you guys know, we work with QT, and that's the dream one day. But it's so tough because I'm going into Booker brain too, where I'm like, all right, what event could we build around this? Man. Well, I mentioned it earlier. My 40th birthday is going to be falling next year during the season in May. And I want to do a selfish booking on a Sunday to celebrate my birthday. And the movie that I'm picking is Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. And I talked about it on this podcast where the idea of having the D come out and rock the Mahoning would be like a culmination of of so much, Same thing with the Kevin Smith Fest thing. A lot of people saw that I took that shot at the Kevin Smith Q&A when he was touring Clerks. And that's something I have been pushing for since 2014. Like the first thing I pitched to Matt and Jeff was the Kevin Smith Fest. And the idea that we could do it legitimately, like bring out all the characters from, the ancillary movies and do a true career run, multi-day. It's kind of what we envisioned for the theater right from the beginning is, if we can make this a fan space where people can come out and truly gather under the umbrella of this artist. It's kind of what, again, it's the direction that we've gone. So who knows? Crazier things have happened. That's, again, another great Patreon question. I would love to know. And maybe it's the thing we put out on our socials in the off season. Just like, hey, if there were no restrictions, who are you booking? What are you showing?
John Carpenter with John Carpenter movies.
Yeah.
There are certain times we'll show something and somebody will comment on Facebook, oh, you should have so-and-so come out. And it's just like, oh boy, that's a lovely idea. But the costs involved are just, it would break us. That some of these big guests are really like tens of thousands of dollars to come out. We just don't have the money.
Yeah. And we've made insane pitches. Again, like if we could dish deep, it's like we've made some unreal pitches to people and talent. And it's just not their bag for whatever reason. It's like, what we do here, we realize is it's fan service, even though there's so much deeper meaning behind it with the preservation angle and what we stand for and all that stuff, to go to a viable star and be like, hey, Steve Spielberg, you want to make a little time to come out to our little theater here in Lehighton?
You can keep everything you make at your table.
Crazier things have happened. Thanks, Will.
Austin Berkey asks that musical question. Where do booked guests typically fly into? How do they typically get to the lot? Is there a typical? In addition, is any Mahoning staff local to the theater? I'm always curious to know how far folks have to commute. So where guests fly in from. Some fly in, some drive. A lot of our guests are based in the greater New York City area, so they just drive down or have somebody drive them
We're
down.
lucky, yeah. Yep.
Val actually drove down one of the Warriors. That was kind of cool. So it's usually, was it Allentown they usually fly into?
Yeah, Allentown, Bethlehem, ABE Airport is the easiest for them to fly into. It's a half hour from the theater, if that, maybe 25 minutes. But it's convenient? Question mark. I usually am the person who has to go and pick up our guests from the airport, bring them back to the hotel. We're very lucky with our staff because, the opportunity to be a right hand to a celebrity guest is really a huge perk of what we do here. And a lot of people do jump at that. But sometimes it is a challenge to be able to juggle all of that, which we've talked about here. But more times than not, it is such a gift. I feel so lucky that not only are we able to book incredible guests, but we get to have one-on-one FaceTime and sometimes really beautiful connections with these people. And that has happened with almost every single guest that we have brought into the Mahoning. And those are memories that I'll carry forever. Like talking about life and philosophy with Zach Ward, or talking about the unknown with Travis Walton, or talking about the crazy life with Ginger Lynn this year, It's really endless. And again, a added perk to what we do. And it's really wild. But yeah, usually Allentown, Bethlehem. What was the other part of the question? Where do the staff come in from?
Yeah, exactly. Are any staff local to the theater, and just basically how far does everybody live from the theater?
Rob might be the closest, right?
Rob is very, very close to the theater. Well, some of the kids are too, aren't they? Aren't they just in
town? Yes. Yeah, definitely some of the young staff. Although some are surprisingly further than you would think. Like, I know Crystal comes in pretty far each night.
I feel like an hour is roughly the standard for a lot of the staff. A lot of the Pennsylvania staff.
That's about the average. Mama Beth travels in from a little further upstate, takes her about an hour. I come from closer to Philly. I'm about an hour and change. Mark's coming from New York.
That's
the drum bores. They're about a half hour, right? They're not over an hour.
They may be close to an hour, between 30 and 60.
I know Vince is a good hour. Dave's a good hour. It's funny because I always say we should get the shirt made. The Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We're close to no one.
Yeah. I always joke about that. I said,
what it feels like.
It's this theater that's, no offense to the greater Lehighton area. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and all this amazing stuff and all these celebrities and, the people who live in the town who probably have watched A Christmas Story all their life and never thought that the bully from A Christmas Story would be in their town. All these people that we bring to kind of the middle of nowhere. But I think being in the middle of nowhere is what's helped the theater be there for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I would say you're probably right. About average an hour. But again, it just goes to show the insane dedication of this staff and how hard we all work to pull together and make it a sauce.
It's all in the sauce.
Try our delicious pizza. It's ready and piping hot at the Refreshment Center now.
Brian Wallace has one. This is a long one, so I will do my best at a mushed mouth to read. Suggestion and related question. It has been stated many times that music is a very important... I sound like I'm doing a fake Italian. Music is a very important... There's no A in there.
Music is a very important. We're in Argento weekend still.
Yeah, we were very sensitive to cultural differences during Argento weekend. My friend Mark Gottlieb from LA was co-DJing with Val during night one of Argento, and it was amazing.
So much.
And she would say things in Italian, and he would talk, and they would just share information, and she would give from the, Italian POV and all that. And I was like, if you need a third person, I can go in and do like Chico Marx Italian. Oh, this is a great song. This movie gonna scare the socks off of you. But I chose not to.
The person DJ set was really fun and gave us the idea that we could totally do something like this as a pre-show,
It was great.
They were like maybe that's the move is we do the recording and also deliver the pre-show.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Let me try this again with all due respect to Mr. Brian Wallace. It has been stated many times that music is very important to the Mahoning. and from the many music-related music films you have shown to the bands that have performed to the excellent DJ sets, thank you, that statement is true. So my suggestion is to Reese's Peanut Butter Cup music with the VHS Fest. Paragraph 2. From the beginning of the VHS era, almost every band or artist from Rat to Jesus Jones to Debbie Gibson released home videos, usually either concerts or music video compilations or something in between. My suggestion is to take that Thursday before VHS Fest and have a night of I Want My MDI TV. Like the music-themed intermission reel at the We Saved the Mahoning show, but off VHS digital. Maybe you could throw in an actual movie like Absolute Beginners or Rattle and Hum, but mainly just show awesome music videos / live performance after awesome music video / live performance for 3 to 4 hours. Wouldn't the David Fincher, parentheses, Madonna, Aerosmith, Freedom 90, or Russell Mulcahy, Duran Duran, Elton John, Razorback videos look great on the Mahoning screen? Heck, you could do an entire program of Steve Barron videos or anything from the Director's Label series, Spike Jonze, ZE,
yes,
Anton Corbin, etc. Related question: as big fans of film, what music videos do you like and why? Mini movie, cool visuals, etc.
Wow.
Now, I grew up in the MTV era. I got MTV about a year after it came out, and it blew my mind. And I watched it nonstop all day, as often as I could have the TV. So my allegiance and memory of music videos is that like 1981 to 1984 or 5 era, when I was really into pop music before I sort of discovered the music of the past and sort of let pop music just continue on without me. So a lot of those videos I love from that period of time. And for me, it kind of was the mini movie, the ones that told a little story, like the Goonies Are Good Enough video that was like an extension of the movie sort of, or the 38 Specials Back Where You Belong video that was like a little action movie. The Chicago had a video for Stay the Night that had explosions and stuff in it. That was like an action movie. So yeah, I liked a lot of music videos back then, but after a certain period, I kind of stopped paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, I came in right after that. It's funny that he mentioned that Director's Series box set. Have you ever seen those? It was put out by, I don't know, maybe like Shout Factory or something like that, but it was a collection of music videos by key directors, including Spike Jonze. And those things hit me at such a turning point when I was going from the love of theater to the love of film, and opened up my eyes to kind of experimental filmmaking that I didn't get as a kid and like didn't appreciate as a kid. And I went so deep down that hole. Those who are our age might remember the LimeWire days. But I would literally download every music video that I could get my hands on purely to look at it as a artistic aesthetic and feed my inspiration. But certainly the Spike Jonze stuff, you know, the stuff that he did with the Beasties, that Weezer Buddy Holly video.
Yes,
awesome.
That was amazing.
Things like that were so inspiring. That what about that video when Chris Walken was dancing on the walls? That
Weapon of Choice.
Yes,
that was
just
amazing.
like so inspirational. Again, as somebody at that age who was really looking at film as a true art form, you know, and still does. And yeah, certainly I would go to those. I don't know if it was Spike Jonze or if it was Anton. But there's a great video of the guy running and he's like on fire. Remember that video?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of people on fire, not in real life, but in movies. You give me a good full body burn and I'm a happy guy. But yeah, that was really impressive.
I really loved the Far Side video that rolled backwards. That might have been Spike Jonze too. I loved the man, there's so many. But honestly, my brain right now is stuck on that pre-VHS Fest event because that's genius. I love how involved the audience gets in this journey with us. And the amount of events that are born out of that suggestion box, or people sending emails, or people saying, hey, I got a connection to this. And then it like fast tracks an event. It's so beautifully communal. I love it, you know? God, wouldn't that be so fun, Mark? He even got the event name down.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's a matter of, you know, sourcing all this stuff, but I was just thinking about that as I was shelving videotapes on our wall, is that was a big thing for a while in the VHS era. It would be like a music video collection. I've got a Huey Lewis one, and it's the music videos in full, which a lot of times MTV or VH1 would chop off anything that wasn't singing. Like, so if there was a little bit of story that led up to the music, a lot of times you never saw that. And they would take it, and sometimes they would have interviews with the band or little sketches or other things that sort of wove their way in between each of the videos. So they were sort of like their own unique thing. And a lot of that stuff, unless, you know, the record company has, or a person has put it up on YouTube now, is just kind of impossible to see.
Yeah. And it is. It's such a, I don't know, it's an intro for people, you know, like a discovery piece where it's like you pick up a tape. And I remember I really got into Rage Against the Machine while I was working at the video store, because they had like a single standalone concert video that just had the red star on the front, Rage Against the Machine. And I'd put it on before I'd get ready, you know, and get everything restocked for the day at the video store. And it's like embedded in my brain. Same thing with Pink Floyd's Pulse. Same thing with, certain things just really hit you at the right time. But I do love that idea of mixing the video MTV culture with the drive-in culture. That's kind of perfect. We'll have to reach out to our Hooters friend.
Every time you say that, I'm like, oh no, the band. I'm like, he's being very offensive. No, he's talking about a big band.
Yeah.
That actually is a great idea, is to play that video on the big screen. There've been a number of videos over the years that took place at drive-ins.
Totally.
Just have to kind of do the research.
You know what? I'm going to go back real quick, because I don't know if this shows negatively upon me or not, but I love Beavis and Butthead. And I've been watching the new episodes recently, which they just started putting out on whatever the streaming channel is. But I also been watching some old episodes, and there's a great one that takes place at a drive-in. So
really?
That also goes in my memories of media and drive-in crossovers.
That's just you just sort of referenced two questions with one memory right there. That's pretty good.
Yes.
So Kenneth Bigley, who is our UK correspondent, he's from Liverpool, Patreon member, which is great. Live comedy on 35mm and VHS era favorites. So this is a multi-part question, so we'll go one at a time so we don't forget the other parts. So live comedy on film and VHS era. For me, I grew up watching the George Carlin specials on HBO. Carlin at Carnegie was the first one I saw. So it's not film, but it did have a VHS release. All those did as well. And you know, we ran Eddie Murphy Raw many years ago at the drive-in, which I want to say is the only live comedy thing we've ever run there in our era.
Yeah, that's the only one that we have screened here. You're absolutely right.
But it was a thing for a while. I mean, there were numerous Richard Pryor stand-up comedy films.
Ones that are our favorites, it's going to show sides of us, you know? And I'm going to say definitely that, like you said, the Eddie Murphy stuff was huge. Like, you could not escape it. The Chris Rock stuff when it came out was huge. Like, you had to see it or you weren't in the water cooler conversation, you know? I'd say the same for the early, what was it called? Killing 'Em Softly, the early Dave Chappelle record. We passed that around like crazy. I'll go even deeper though. Jerky Boys. Like, handing around the Jerky Boys tape was so influential in my like literal 5th to 6th to 8th grade experience. It's kind of unbelievable.
I have to say, not a week has gone by since I first heard Jerky Boys. I want to say I was freshman in college.
Yeah.
That I haven't talked that way or made a reference. And Val's father is big into the Jerky Boys, and he makes those references all the time. So we're like riffing on routines at the dinner table when we go over to their house. And I was going to bring this on you in person, but he recently Val's father turned 75 about a week or two ago. Wow. And she got him a cameo with Johnny Brennan, the voice of the Jerky Boys. And it is amazing. So yeah, you can pay Johnny Brennan to basically
still in New York. Wouldn't that be great to have Johnny come out and do? Oh my God!
You want to talk about something? Talk about playing the Jerky Boys movie and having Johnny B come out.
Dude, that would be just like yes, all day, yes. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other really key ones that were like hand-arounds, you know, where it's just like, oh, you gotta hear this, you gotta hear this.
If you're talking about 35mm stand-up, there wasn't a lot.
Comedy.
But if you're talking about comedy videotapes, that was pretty much any cable special. So Robin Williams at the Met was pretty huge.
Yes.
I used to like the Gallagher tapes. As much as people think of him as just a guy who smashes watermelons and who was incredibly bitter in his later years, he was pretty darn funny with the verbal stuff. It's a bit of a prop comic, a lot of a prop comic, but his verbal stuff was pretty funny too. So I remember renting those. I just think about when I was a kid and finding a video store that would let me rent tapes that were rated R. So it was a lot of
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that suggestion as well. And we have talked about Stand Up Sunday. We were really on the fence on whether or not we were going to do Stand Up Sunday this year. I think it's certainly worth a shot. I think it all depends on what we play. It's tough because, I mean, a lot of those routines do become nostalgic and you can go back and watch them for the nostalgia. But comedy has a thing where, you know, I don't find I go back to my comedy records as often as I go back to my music records, you know, where it's like if that joke is embedded in your brain and gives you that escape for a little while, the idea of like going back and reliving it over and over again is a weird concept. That's why I think when it catches on, it's so weird. Oh, the Dice stuff. I remember when Dice was around, like that was a thing where we had to hand it off secretly. It's like if your mom knows you're listening to Dice, she will punish you.
At the time that came out, I remember seeing him on one of the HBO. Rodney Dangerfield used to host these young comedian specials on HBO. First time you saw a lot of people. And the first time I saw him, it was the dirtiest stuff I'd ever heard. I'd never heard the F word used that much.
Great.
And in my recollection, I feel like culture changed a little after that because it seemed like everybody I knew or the kids in school were dropping the F-bombs a lot more after he hit than before.
All right.
There was one feature film, Dice Rules, that was released, so you
It's
theoretically could show it.
available on 35. Yeah, I want to say we may even have easy access to that.
The content in his material now is so frowned upon, even though people aren't totally aware. Some people that it was a joke and he was kind of making fun of that persona.
Right.
But it was pretty controversial in its day, and arguably far more now. I always liked his delivery, even though a lot of what he said was just crude and could be seen as very misogynist. And
he literally had like a glee, like
and he was a Jerry Lewis fan, so he wove that in there a little bit. He used to act. His early act was Jerry Lewis as the Nutty Professor, turning into John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. If you've ever seen it, it's pretty funny. Another 35 millimeter live comedy, Monty Python Live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, that would be
which was shot on video, transferred to film so it could be theatrical. I always wish they would find the video masters for that, but that's a 35 millimeter thing. That would probably do pretty well because those Python routines, they were like rock stars. People loved singing along to the routines live. You know, people know those like the back of their hand, but they're still funny.
Speaking of rock stars, man, these Patreon members, I'll tell you, literally every single one has been like a dish, a layup for an amazing event, a deep, insightful question. Like it's incredible. Like I could do this all day. It's in a weird way, you know, like we talked about early on, the running of the theater is never ending. And in a weird way, these recordings are a way for us to take a breath, and it can become very cathartic just to have the time to be able to sit and, you know, just like in a darkened theater and kind of let the thoughts roll and all that stuff. So let's do one more and we'll save some for Jeff for next time.
All right. I will finish Kenneth's, what he had to say, because I broke it up. He said, what about Bigfoot films? Well, funny enough,
wow.
On Thursday, October 20th, we have a Bigfoot double feature coming of Harry and the Hendersons in the 1970 movie Bigfoot. Now, Harry and the Hendersons is by William Deere, who was the director of movie Time Rider that I love, that Mike Nesmith produced. And it was a family classic, huge hit in its day, spawned a TV series even. And Bigfoot is but an ultimate drive-in movie because it's about 1970. It's got John Carradine in it. It's made on the cheap and feels kind of like a TV episode. Bigfoot captures young women, and only a team of bikers, a team of Hell's Angels, hog riders are going to go in and get these women back from Bigfoot. That's going to get me at the theater.
Kicks ass. I mean,
I don't know if the Harry and the Hendersons crowd is what they're going to think of that, but to me, Bigfoot is like, yeah. We did a Bigfoot weekend once before with Exhumed. It didn't do that great, but I would love to try something like that again because there were so many movies and documentaries in the 70s and beyond about that stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a fandom, you know. It's certainly a fandom, and you can't talk about Bigfoot movies without Harry and the Hendersons. So that is one that we're gonna have a great time with. I really do love when we can get into these goofy comedies and just have a night where we're laughing our butts off on the lot.
And if I recall, Harry, which is the Bigfoot character in Harry and the Hendersons, was portrayed by Kevin Peter Hall, which is the man who was inside the suit of the Predator in Predator.
Oh shit, I didn't know
Pretty
that.
sure. He was a very tall African-American actor who was in a show called Misfits of Science that I used to like, where he had one of the rare times you see him not in a monster suit, but he was just super tall. So he was ideal for playing. I think he was in, what was it, Without Warning. I think he played the creature in that too. And the last thing Kenneth has to say is, by the way, nice to hear about those Monkeys episodes on 35. Nobody happier than me to know about those and the fact that that show was a success. And we will be bringing back different Monkeys episodes in 2024, I believe.
Yeah.
So one more. Brett Ryan Bonowitz asks that musical question. Virgil has mentioned living on the lot during the season. I'd love to hear more about what that's like.
Wow. Well, it is a look, I say that loving the drive-in is a lifestyle. Running a theater, when you're doing it well, can become a lifestyle. And what we do here has crossed over so much into my personal life, in that my entire family is employed here. My daughter works at the concession stand. We run this business as a family, and so much goes into it. And I find more than the ease of not having to travel back and forth every single night, it really does allow me to focus on the lot as a whole and the business as a whole, and be able to take a step back from it on nights when there's literally nobody here but me. But I'm sure what people want to hear about is how freaking fun it is. So every morning I wake up and I walk the entire drive-in lot. I usually do a couple laps. Again, on nights after shows, I'll pick up trash, do the spin around, and then I'll head into town, get some breakfast, come on back, and start doing, any lot maintenance, things like that. But the beautiful thing is that on nights that we don't have to get ready for a show, like starting in the mid-afternoon, I have the lot to myself, which means I have that big, beautiful screen to myself. And my thing of late, which has leaked into some of the late night fun, is concerts. Playing concert videos. It's, with the size of that screen, sitting in that field, it is truly like going back in time and watching some of these bands, and some of them who I will never, ever have the experience of seeing. So I've been really deep diving on stuff like that. Of course, I will watch films here as well, and I'm sure it will warm a lot of you guys' hearts that I have a retro video game player as well, that I can totally tap into that anytime that we want as well. So, but yeah, the living on the lot thing is fully immersive and allows people to come onto the lot, get work done on the lot. There's always somebody here. The overnight situation obviously wouldn't be possible without it, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Back when I was running the vineyard, before I jumped full-time into the drive-in, that's what Matt did. That was Matt's gig, was pretty much having to stay on the lot all the time, take care of anything that was happening during the week, whether it be deliveries, orders, blah, blah, blah. And that's pretty much a never-ending task, to be that guy here at the theater. And it's really nice to be in town as well, because when things come up where we need to get something done in a hurry, I'm able to literally take care of that during the week. I'm gonna dish a little bit, because what the heck, why not? If this doesn't work out, why, I may regret it, but whatever. So our last night of the year with Exhumed Films, we had so many requests out to guests, and unfortunately none of the big ones were available. So Harry came to me with this idea of playing Wicker Man and doing a community burn, where we actually build a Wicker Man and bring people out to celebrate the last night of the year. So I'm going to be heading over right after this conversation to the fire company, who we are very good friends with, and asking them to come out and help us sanction another bar raise for us and do a bonfire here on the lot. So really, really excited about it. And again, probably something that we couldn't get done in a quick manner if I weren't super close, That's the hardest part, is, Mark, myself, and Jeff are literally over an hour, sometimes more, from the theater. So getting things done, especially during the year, it's become essential to the role. So I'd say that's kind of the routine. I do try to go back and forth as much as possible, but like this week, we have a Patreon show on Thursday. So our overnighters just cleared out of here an hour or two ago. And instead of driving back and then driving back to the theater tomorrow, I'll just stay overnight. And tonight we're actually doing a test run for Hayden's Luther show. So it's, again, something like that happens pretty often here where people are coming to build sets or need to get access to the lot and whatever. So it's always an adventure, and it's become, like we've talked about a million times, way bigger of a dream than I could have ever imagined. So,
well, the one question I have that maybe me being an avatar for the people who are listening, is it ever creepy?
Ooh. So of late, there have been these howling coyotes in the distance. I don't know if they're coyotes, they're howling something, but they will yelp and the packs in packs. And like, I swear, I'm like, are those yelps getting closer? Are they moving closer? That's something that you hear any night, but when you're there alone, it's exceptionally creepy. But one of my favorite things to do is to watch a truly scary horror movie fully alone on the drive-in lot. Like, it is the ultimate test. It's almost like going and staying a night in the haunted house thing, you know? It's incredible, you know? So, and I do love it when, you know, people come into town early and it's like, you know, come on over. I got the night here by myself. So
it's a really interesting experience. I've been alone on the lot a couple of times. Usually it was when I was driving down late on a Thursday night, and Matt and Andrew would be here, but they would be out shopping for the weekend when they were buying groceries locally. And I would get there when they were gone, and it would be nobody and dead silent. But that screen, if people aren't aware, it is a sound sponge and a sound reverberator. So I was sitting outside my car waiting for, you know, the guys to show up, just enjoying the quiet in the dark. And I heard voices that sounded like they were coming from under the screen, because under our screen is kind of hollow, is not a great word, but under the screen structure, there's a little area under there. And it sounded like people were under there talking. And I started to get kind of creeped out. Like, who are those people? Why are they under there? So I got in the car and locked the door, and I realized it was the sound from behind our lot. The lot is where the carnival people park their stuff, and there have people who live there and are caretakers. But so, yeah, those sounds getting closer to you very well may have been from very far away. Like, the racetrack is not really close to us, but the sound of the racetrack travels and hits our screen. And some nights it sounds like the announcer or the cars are coming out of our screen, and it's not. It's just the way that strange big object deals with sound. So yeah, it can be, I like being there alone when I have. It's a really cool experience, but if you're prone to being jittery, it can feel kind of creepy out there, because it can get, you turn the building lights off, it can get pretty dark out there.
Yeah, I would never leave my lady here alone. I'll say that, you know. Yeah, it can be spooky. I mean, literally, we're in the middle of nowhere. But this place has become our home. That's why the difficulties of running the business are that much bigger of a deal and way more immersive than they would be on any other business situation, because it might just be disposable and you can move on. But here, there's so much involved, so many people involved, so many personalities involved, all that stuff. And I can say, like, the quiet nights on the lot are incredibly beneficial to the sanity.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
We love doing the podcast. And we said it on the last podcast, the amount of people that come up to us and say they love the podcast and everything that we do and all of that stuff. Like, it's truly the fuel to our fire and keeps us going regardless of how big the hurdles may get every single year. So yeah, we love you guys so much. Mark, you got anything else for the peeps?
Keep those cards and letters coming. Not really. Keep listening. I swear we're going to record more new episodes. We just all got so busy, and I still have a backlog of shows that we recorded an embarrassingly long time ago, like February and March. The guest interviews that don't really have any kind of timestamp or timeliness to them, those will keep coming out. But we've just been so busy. So we're going to keep recording these all year round. So you'll be getting a lot more stories about the business and stories about the shows in the season in the coming weeks.
All right, guys. Well, on that note, we'll see you next time. And Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.